Roberts, briefly.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for attending today. Mr Broad, I enjoyed your opening statement and I fully support hydro in general. And One Nation supports hydro in general. We would like to see a lot more of it. Of course, this is not a straight hydro. It is a pump storage. But I concur with your comments that it provides baseload, hydro, baseload. It's like coal and nuclear, they're baseload, environmentally responsible, cheap and reliable, and they're synchronous. So what's not to like? Is it true, some of the reports we've read in the media, that this scheme was considered 20, 30 years ago and was deemed not viable?
Yeah, it was. Back in Sir William Hudson, who built the Snowy, put a beautiful memo to the government at the day proposing the pumped hydro scheme. But these damn thermals came on at the time, baseload coal, and made it uneconomic. It's been uneconomic really up until recent times. As the thermals start to retire, more renewables come in, then hydro starts to come into its own. Can I just say, Senator, that we run the largest pumped hydro scheme as well as our traditional Snowy today. So people sort of think that this is a long way off in the future. We run the largest pumped hydro today. And in various times, like the 10th of February this year, we get stretched to limits in all parts of our hydro scheme, and the value of these things to the whole energy market is seen in that context.
So then, let me understand, this was not viable in the past because coal underpriced it.
But now, yeah, it's flat load. So what we are, we've got long in capacity, short in energy. So we're like a sprinter. We go flat out for a short period of time, then we've got nothing. So we've got to be very careful what we use it. Pump will give you longer periods of time in a sense, but again you've got to stop the pump. So we are a sprinter. We're a capacity player. We fill in the gaps, and wind, solar, and other means look more as a load following activity.
So in essence, as the cost of energy has increased due to the increased use of intermittence, and you said it so well yourself, more intermittence, so we now need something to back us up for reliability. Reliability and cost have become problems. This has now become viable. So it's really an indictment on our energy system, sadly.
Snowy hydro, in the last 30 years, kept the lights on regularly. So what people fail to recognise in this whole debate. While we've had lots of coal generation, there's been many times, when hydro's kept the lights on. So what we're proposing is no different from what's happened then. The pump scheme is simply a way of augmenting what we do today.
But it's now become economically viable because of the high cost of energy.
Pumped hydro has, but the other existing pumped hydro we have today, which is the largest in the country by a mile, has been viable for 30 years. Pumped hydro, this scale, which adds a level of capacity 50% greater than what we can do, becomes viable now. Quite as Senator Carr was pointing out, in a very complex engineering structure becomes viable because of the intermittency that occurs in the system now.
Right. One of the things I'm concerned about is that I've been long aware, and I'm particularly aware now that I'm in the Senate, of just how little accountability is in this building and how thought bubbles lead to policies which lead to costs that now burden us. And I'm not looking at your scheme as a thought bubble, okay? But for example, the NBN. We now have a former Prime Minister and a Prime Minister who were both extolling the virtues of NBN, now saying what a dog it is, according to the media. So what is there that guarantees this is not just a headline-seeking project?
Senator,
this is not a reflection of you, this is a reflection on the government.
No, I understand what you're saying. The project's been around since 1966, been looked at 3 different times. That's why I was very keen to put together an independent economic report that will challenge the market and the mindset. In my view, it'll get together much of what Alan Finkel was saying in his report. It'll combine the market as we or they see it the next 30 years, and how pumped hydro will be an enabler to ensure that market operates efficiently. So people can judge us by that report as much as any others. In fact, I think the economic report will be far more important in one sense than engineering.
Okay. Do you know, or maybe the Minister can tell me, will there be any comparison of pump storage not just against intermittent energy, which we know is expensive, but against baseload coal?
The economic report will look at baseload coal as well as part of the mix, and again, you'll be able to make your own decision once that report's available.
Okay, thank you. And what are the governance protections here? Because I know engineers, I am one. I know engineers can get excited about a project and then costs can be sort of ignored. And when you've got a political overlord wanting it to go because they made a headline a couple of years ago, what kind of governance overview is there to put a throttle on this excitement of engineers, because it's real and it's tangible?
Yes, Senator, we're a company in our own right, so our directors can go to jail. So our corporations law drives our company. So the directors of our company, including me, are absolutely accountable for the performance of the company. And that's why the point that was being made about transmission and other things has to be sorted to make sure we get this right, because there are risks in this project, and directors will not, as directors of the company, we take that risk incredibly seriously. And being a corporation of corporations law, the law is pretty harsh on us if we mislead people on what that might be.
Last question. I thank you for your introduction. I found it very interesting. Really appreciated that. Something you mentioned in there about trading credits. Your words were trade credits. Could you just explain that, please?
Again, as you know, the renewable energy certificates are traded in the market. Mm-hmm. I've preached for a long time that we should be able to buy credits globally. Emissions is a global issue, and the fact we're going to move to that system, I think, is a big gain for consumers.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we will track in.
I'd like to know a bit more about what you just said to Senator Whish-Wilson.
Yeah, so I think the notion that we can track into, as proposed by the government, to global emissions, I think is the right thing to do. You know, we all started this position a long time ago, and I've been around this stuff too long, I suppose. But the idea was that the third world would develop and would save the Amazon at the same time. I thought that was still the dream. And so us plugging into global emissions, I think, is an absolutely right strategy, and not artificially distinguishing between new and old green, going away from all that and understanding what the end game is and reducing emissions globally and plugging ourselves into that is the right strategy.
So you see this as part of an international carbon dioxide trading system?
Yeah.
So the Liberal Party
This is a good last
said
question.
that the emissions trading scheme, which is what you're talking about, is really a carbon tax.
And that will be your last question.
Again, I just plugging into emissions trading. See, we have what everyone misses. What everyone misses. RECs are being traded today at $80. $80. That $80 feeds into consumer prices today.
Okay, Senator
sorry,
Zenford.
Chair, if I could,
Yes,
could just clarify Mr. Broad's propositions. As Mr. Broad said, Snowy Hydro is a company. Company can have particular views on things such as being discussed with Senator Roberts. But as we discussed, I think at great length last night, the question of whether or not international permits would be part of the new energy, the REG, is a matter for government and has not yet been determined. So I just wanted to make sure I'm sure the committee will be remembering a lot of the detail that we went through last night, but I just wanted to make sure that obviously companies, it's entirely appropriate they can put views forward, but at the end of the day that's a matter for the government and that has not yet been decided.
Thank you for that clarification. Senator Zenford.